Hello, welcome back to Lost and Found No More Secrets. My name is Heidi Kuiper, and I am the host of the show. I am joined today by my fellow genetic genealogist, also a volunteer at DNAngels, Laura Schultz. Hi, Laura. How are
Hi.
you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I am really excited about today's special guest. She
Me
is an
too.
NPE, which means not parent expected. Her father that raised, or the father that's on her birth certificate, is not her biological father. She has a fascinating story. So I would like to go ahead and jump into Alice's story, if that's okay with you.
That's perfect. Sounds great.
Great. Let's bring up Alice to the show.
Hi
Hi, Alice.
guys.
Hi, Alice.
Thank you so
Hey,
much for
thank
joining us.
well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share. It's been a lot.
Yeah.
Well, let's just jump into from the beginning. What was your family structure like growing up for you?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. I grew up with my mom and the ever revolving list of stepdads and boyfriends. Uh, my mom did, I believe, care for us the best that she knew how, but it was interesting around the house a lot. My story kind of started before I was even on the scene. My mom was in her second marriage when her husband was killed unexpectedly in a car accident by a drunk driver, head-on
Mm.
car collision. A couple of years later, she had met my legal dad, the gentleman that's on my birth certificate, and after a short time, they married. She was expecting at the time, and here along I came about 6 or 8 weeks after they tied the knot. That relationship ended about a year and a half later. I have a younger sibling from that marriage, and my legal dad was facing some charges of improper behavior with a minor, one of my older siblings. And then a few months later, he was charged and then later convicted of a homicide. Mom began to share that information with me when I was 9 years old. Um, I can't imagine a parent being in that situation. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would like to think that I would have handled it differently, but it's impossible, I feel like, for me to judge her actions in 2025 when we have more studies and more information available to us than what they had in the early 1980s.
Hmm.
At any rate, sometimes we're still stuck with quite a mess that requires a lot of processing. Um, I actually started to find out more specific detail as I got older, the preteen and teen years, and I suspected that my father might not be my father, but that concrete proof didn't actually hit me until I was in my 40s, which kind of skips ahead through most of, excuse me,
That's
most
good.
of the story. But to tell you a bit more about my dad, we grew up in the rural wilderness of West Virginia. And let me just say, it is wilderness, dense trees, back roads, fun summers, but the the culture is still there. um, let's see. So I'm kind of stuck in this. We had moved away. My mom, when we moved, I was 4 years old. My mom had told us and told our school and told everyone that my legal dad was incarcerated. If he got out, he would find us all and kill us. And for that reason, if our names were never allowed to be published in the paper, in the local paper for basketball teams or volleyball teams or honor rolls or anything like that, she went through several failed relationships, and throughout the years, as a kid, we would hear bits and pieces that people would accidentally have a Freudian slip moment about. They would say my legal dad's name and yada yada yada, and the sum total of those began to take shape. He was descended from the Hatfield and McCoy clan in southern West Virginia. My mom being from Lincoln County herself. Um, and so growing up, that being in the back of my mind, it was always kind of a challenge. We're taught that behavior can be somewhat genetically inherited. Um, and it was like, wow, what awaits my future if this is half of who I am. Um, so fast forward, that's kind of always how I saw myself in part. When I graduated high school, I moved to South America and worked in an orphanage for a few years. Didn't matter. I was still this person because my genes were with me, right? We take that as part of who we are to an extent that I don't know that even I've known my status and my legal father and who he was. I'm sorry, I've known who my biological father is now for almost 4 or 5 years. I found out in 2021. Um, and that is still so ingrained in my system that I'm not even sure I completely understand the deep rooted effect that it has on someone in their mind. Um, so when I came back to the States, I worked my way through college, earned a bachelor's degree in psychology. Um, didn't matter. That person is who I was because my birth certificate says so. Um, my husband and I got married 15 years ago, and he wanted to do a DNA test because his family believed that they had a lot of Native American blood and ancestry. And so he was always encouraging me, hey, you need to do this with me. Hey, you need to do this with me. And I was kind of dragging my feet. They were a lot more expensive back in the day than what they are now.
Mhm.
The direct to consumer tests at the time were, it was almost $300 for both of us to do ours at the time. So when the results came back, there were a lot of last names there. None of them were expected. And um, of all the moments in my life, I remember the moment that I got off the plane in South America. I remember the moment we got married. I remember the moment I became a mama. Those were all great times. But for me, there was the before I knew, and there was the after I knew. Uh, and not everybody gets their happy ending. And so to this day, it's something that I'm super, super thankful for. But I remember walking into our kitchen and looking at my husband and being like, I don't know who my dad is. And it was just, I mean, I just watched eyeballs, great big. And we just kind of stood there and, what do we do now? I know how genetics work. We all did the Gregor Mendel tree in school, but we couldn't make any sense of it. So coincidentally enough, one of my coworkers, where I was working at the local community behavioral health center, she had also found out that she was NPE, and the DNAngels had assisted her in finding her biological father. So I reached out, and I think that Amy, I believe you'd have to check, but I think Amy was my
It,
angel,
it was Amy
and
Rose.
she was very, very understanding. I believe that she had been an angel herself, had been an NPE herself. And so as we worked through things, I think it took her between 8 and 12 hours to figure it out, but they researched public records and come to find out it the gentleman that is my biological father had lived 2 miles away from my home the whole time I was growing up and being told that you don't have a father, you never had a father, you don't have a dad. Here he was 2 miles away. We were
Alice, is
very,
is
very
your
poor.
mother still alive? Is your mother still alive?
No, he had passed away in 2019,
Your
and then I had
mother?
found out in 2021. My mother,
Your
no, she passed away in 2013.
okay. So I'm
So
getting the
both of
feeling that
my parents.
the father on your birth certificate, your legal father, was not the best kind of role model or genes that you wanted
N-
to be associated with. So when I
No,
hear you graduate and you go to South America to go to what to help with this orphanage, was a part of your reasoning like trying to do your best to get away from that stigma?
maybe I felt like that I had been lucky enough to be able to get out of those situations. My mom was constantly in disfavorable situations because of bad relationships, and I wanted to do something better for myself. Um, I had started going to church, and we are still practicing Christians to this day. And so I wanted to kind of do a mission and maybe help people who had had similar experiences to mine, which is how I ended up volunteering in the orphanage because, wow, a lot of the kids there, they had gone through situations that were equally as serious and some even more serious than my own. So I felt like I could identify with them, and that always helps when you're trying to be of assistance to someone that's in a less than favorable situation.
Was
Alice, you
there
had
a part?
mentioned,
So
Go ahead,
sorry,
Laura. Go ahead,
you had
Laura.
mentioned you have a younger sister, was it? Did
Yes.
she believe he was
Yes.
her father as well?
We both kind of think that she is the legal dad is her father. When as soon as I hit 18, I reached out to my legal dad's family and began to try to make a relationship with them, and they are great. We just don't have anything in common.
Mm.
To this day, they're my Facebook friends. I love them. We did Christmas together. They know my kids. I live a couple of hours away from them, so I don't see them regularly, and a lot of them are just very elderly now and are passing away. Um, my legal dad was born in 1935, and then my biological parents were born in the early 40s. So that generation is now, of course, all passing away. But
Mhm.
his family were wonderful people, and I tell you what, before I found out, I was so glad that they were there, um, because having that void it's just not normal. Even if the answer is unfavorable for me, I feel like it would have been better to have truthful but not happy information as opposed to a web of lies, because we feel like we were always very limited financial means. We would live in a house until we were evicted, and then we'd have to move. The whole time, my mom owned a home in the community where my biological father lived. And to this day, the only way that that behavior makes rational sense in my mind is if she knew and had custody concerns. Now, in all fairness, that is my suspicion. Um, my mom did pass away in 2013 before this came to light, so she's not here to defend herself. I do want to be fair and say that, but in my mind, I feel like she knew and just didn't chose to withhold the information for her what appears to be her benefit. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
having had 5 years to look back over the information, that's the only thing that seems to make a
Yeah.
lot of the behaviors that we saw
Especially if your home life
rational
was
sense.
unstable. If it was unstable
No,
and
not
you
at
knew
all.
that, then I could see where
Yeah.
she would be
Yeah.
afraid of losing custody.
Yes. And, for a family of limited means to put themselves at risk of homelessness when you own a home in a community close to your family, that is, that risk of custody issues is the only thing that seems to make that behavior make sense and why she would do that. So, and, in her situation, that may not have been an invalid fear. That may have been a legitimate fear. I hope that I would have made different choices, but those were 30 years ago. So,
Right.
um, fast forward to today, I'm glad that Angels didn't just say, "Oh, here's your legal dad, have a nice life," or "Here's your biological father, have a nice life." After they told me and we figured it out, they were there and provided a lot of support right down to helping me figure out if I wanted to contact my biological family and to offer suggestions about it, because it's a process. It's a really long process. And so when I was ready, there were listening ears to my ideas of how to make contact. And what I ended up doing was sending a very carefully worded letter to suggest that there could potentially be a genetic concurrence. And my siblings got that. They were not surprised. They figured that there could be some NPEs out there in my situation. About 8 to 10 weeks later, they did we reach out, and fast forward to 2025, they're my best friends now.
Oh,
Yes, and so I'm very thankful because now my kids have, they see my husband's family completely intact, and they have aunts and uncles and cousins, and that was something that I could never offer them. And while all three of my parents have passed, they still have my brother and my sister.
mhm.
My biological father had two, I don't want to say legitimate, but two kids by his marriage. Um, he was still married with his wife when I was born. Um, and they were very accepting and have gotten to know us. And even his wife, before she passed away, was very kind to my kids and to me. And it just blows my mind. He had been an architect by trade, and the family was of some means. And I really appreciate that they didn't really care about financial situations. They just kind of accepted us. My husband and I are both, I have a degree, we're both gainfully employed. And so that was never a point of contention, because when I found out that my father was of means and here I had grown up without necessary food, it was a bit to process, and I had been afraid that they would not be accepting of me. And yeah, I've learned so much from my siblings. My brother, a lot of times, will wear holy jeans around just to see if people treat him correctly, and to see character. And I love learning from my older siblings because I feel like that's a normalized situation, a normalized thing. And
Yeah.
now it's easy for me because I'm on the other end of it. But let me tell you, when you're standing in the kitchen with a new test result, telling your spouse, "Hey, I have no idea," that's not
Yeah.
fun. That was not fun.
Allie, how was your
So
relationship with the sister you grew up with? Has that changed because of all this?
no, I don't think so. And really, I felt bad for her, kind of, in a way. My mother had 5 children, and we knew that there were 3 different fathers involved, but we had grown up and been told that, you guys are full siblings, you have the same dad. And so I kind of sensed in her that was maybe a little bit of a loss, because now I'm
Mm,
just another halfling. And so, if anything, it encouraged us to spend more time investing in each other. We also live a couple of hours apart now as adults, um, and just keeping that bond strong as well. I do still interact with my legal dad's remaining siblings. There's not very many of them now because of their age. Um,
Did you
but
tell them about
knowing
your discovery?
I did. I did, because I feel very strongly that my mother had lied, just to be honest. And in this day and age, what she did was kind of, potentially deprivation of parental rights, or even kidnapping. And I just, look, this is what happened. I just told them, this is what, we sent this test in. This came back. I'm sorry, when I reached out to you, I believed, I was his daughter, and he is on my birth certificate, and I didn't know. And they were very receptive of that. I am finding in my own life that not covering things up, it's just the best way to deal with it, for me.
mhm.
And there is an appropriate way to deal with that. I would never just show up on somebody's porch. "Hi, I'm your," whatever, there is an appropriate way to go about it. But working through that for me has been worth it so much, because now I've gained a deeper understanding of myself. Both of my siblings have college degrees. Both of them have higher degrees than what I've earned. You know, I did a mission in Peru. My older sister went to Mexico for a while. She speaks Spanish. I speak Spanish. We both play piano. Just so we listed like over 30 things that we just happened
Wow.
to do.
Do
Even
you
though
look
we
like
had
them?
never seen each other. I do. And
Oh,
here in a bit, I will email you a picture of my biological father. It's fine if you wish to share it, when he was 9, and a picture of my son at the same age. They could have been twins. They
Wow.
could have
wow.
been twins. And, my family, were quirky. We find humor in things that maybe the normal people would not find humor in. And they're the same way. It's like we share the same humor. We have similar degrees. We work for competing company. It has just been amazing. I feel like it would be an interesting case study for a nurture versus nature debate, because there was some definite choice involved, but there's definitely some, you can't have this much in common without there being a reason for it, right down
Mhm,
to, I always say, from my nose up, I look like my father's family. From my nose down, I look like my mother's family. And just
mhm.
having that ability to genetically mirror and be like, I look like my people. It's just changed my complete emotional makeup. I don't understand it. I don't know why it has. I just know that it has.
Alice, one thing I
So
would like to ask you about, because you've had such a great ending, and I think this is a lot of the clients that I currently am working with where they struggle, is reaching out to that biological family, fear of rejection. What's the best practice in reaching out to them? Obviously, what you did work, and I know that Amy helped you along the way. But what
mhm.
advice do you have to our viewers that haven't reached out yet, that are scared to? What advice do you have for them?
Wow, it's just a process. What I did and what worked in my situation, we sent a letter, and then we waited. and it was a long wait, but I just kind of held it in my mind that, hey, I found out first, so I had all of this head start time to deal. And I knew I had struggled with it, even though for me, I suppose emotionally and socially it would be a step up. For them, not that it was a step down, but that they had no idea. Their family had been, pretty well, I don't want to say intact, but they knew all of their puzzle pieces. Whereas
Mhm.
I knew what mine was and I'd had all this time to deal with it.
Right.
They only
So
took,
so
in my case, they only took a couple months.
I'm hearing A, be patient, to give
Oh,
them
yes, it is
time to
patient,
process.
process, and respectful. They may not be ready right now. In my case, our biological father had passed away in 2019. This was in early 2021. So that was still really, really fresh for them. My sister says it was like ripping off a new Band-Aid. Um, and I
Because
just
her
love her
parents
heart and
were
appreciate
because
the fact.
your
Mhm.
biological father and their mother was married at the time of your conception,
Yes,
correct?
they were married at the time.
That
Yes,
adds
they
a
were married. They did, yeah, yeah, they did end up separating when I would have been about 5. But yeah, at the time. And they felt like they had known all of my legal father's um, lady friends who all happened to have the same first name as the name my mother went by. Um, but they felt like that they had identified each of those ladies. And so here came a new one that they didn't know anything about. And so it kind of left them, in a spot where they also need time to process. So life is a long time. I would say allow it to process and respect boundaries. A family might not be ready on day one to say, hey, let's meet up or let's, strike up an email relationship or something. But life's a long time, and maybe, in a few weeks or a few months, they'll be ready, and then, you know, it would be time. So,
How many siblings do you have with your biological father?
so my biological father had 2 other children. I have an older sister and an older brother. So I like to remind them that I am the baby and therefore I must be loved. I tell them I'm their favorite now. So
I'm
I
so
just love
happy.
your
uh,
outlook. You're
I
so
mean,
positive, and I really think this will help people who are just fresh to this to see that
right.
there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I
Yeah.
just think it's
Well,
refreshing.
in my situation, a lot of people get a crappy start in life. All of those kids that I had the privilege of interacting with when I lived in Arequipa, each one of them had a crappy start. Not everybody gets their happy ending right away. And I got mine. And I'm just so immensely grateful. And so that was really my main motivation for speaking with you today. I would love to tell people, hey, it gets better from that moment when you open the test and it's not what you thought it was going to be. It gets better from there. It's a really long process. Yeah.
that's really cool that your biological father's
Mhm.
wife was on
Yeah.
board with their children having a relationship with you.
Yeah.
That can be a huge deal breaker for a lot of
Oh,
people. So
yes.
it takes a
Oh,
special
yes.
person
So
to
very thankful. Very thankful. She did pass away a year and a half ago, and we went to her funeral, and I wasn't for sure internally how that was going to go, but it was it just felt like I was there because I was supposed to be there, and that was my family too. And that feeling of being wanted and being and belonging and not being someone's inconvenient truth, it was just so empowering. I can't even begin to tell you. I'm just very blessed to have the connections that I had all those years and didn't know. And here we
right.
are.
Well, in conclusion, Alice,
So,
I would like to ask you if you had a chance to have a conversation with mom. I know she's
oh
passed,
wow.
but
Mhm.
if you had a chance to have a conversation with mom and could ask her one question, what would that one question be?
Man, why couldn't you just tell the truth? I have a lot of empathy in my heart for her. I understand her biological family may not have been very accepting, but it just made it so much worse. you know, sometimes life serves you a curveball and it is what it is. Trying to cover it up, it just makes it worse. That's what I would ask her is, why couldn't you just tell the truth?
Right. No more secrets,
So
right?
no
Mhm.
more secrets. No more secrets.
Well, Alice, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate you. I can tell you that
Thank
people are going to
you.
watch this. People
Sure.
are going to watch this, and you are going to help people out there that are in the same position as you.
Aw,
Just
well, thank
just
you.
hearing your story is going to help so many other people.
Mhm.
Thank you so much,
Well,
Alice.
thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Alice.
allowing
It's
me to
nice
speak
to
with
Bye.
you
meet you.
today. Thanks.
Bye. Take
Bye
care.
Bye.
bye.
Wow. She has it all together, doesn't she?
She has it, like we said, she has a great outlook. Great
She
outlook.
does. I love I love that. And I really agree with you. She's going to help a lot of people. A lot of the things she said and how she reached out and especially
Mhm.
with the patients because uh, that's what I find at least with my clients. They want to jump right in and you're like, "Wait a minute."
Right.
You
They've
had to
known.
yeah,
Our
you've
our
known
clients have known for a while, but this is a
right, right,
surprise,
right.
especially like
Just
the biological father that may be still living. This
yes,
is brand new to them, so you definitely have to have
absolutely.
patience for sure.
Absolutely. So, patience is our word of the day.
Right. And we're also being very intentional about having our current clients that we're working on, we're sending them over to watch Lost and Found episodes. So I think it's
Absolutely.
really important that we give the best information for what's going on in that moment for that client. So that's why I
And
wanted
they know
Alice
they're not
to
alone. I feel like that's a lot of it. Like
but
they know
yeah,
that they're in the exact same position as someone else and look at they've gotten through it. So, it's
right.
important to know you're not alone in this world.
Correct. There is
So,
light at the end of the tunnel.
there is. Thank you,
Well, that
Heidi, for
concludes our
coming on.
episode today. Let's do a call to action for Alice. If you would like to support Alice, we know that she'll be watching this and reading the comments. If you'd like to support Alice, let's give Alice some blue hearts. We haven't done blue hearts in a while, I feel like. Let's give her some blue hearts and some words of encouragement. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. We are almost at 10,000 subscribers as of this taping today. We're so excited. That's like such a big moment for us.
Milestone. Yeah.
So we appreciate y'all watching and continuing to come back. We will see you next Thursday. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Laura.